No, thank you so much for that very long introduction. So I'm hope you're still sticking there. And as well as Isa said, I mean, do ask questions in the chat, and I'll try and make this as engaging and fun as humanly possible. And as you can see, I've been in the purpose space for more than a decade in the hurricane's eye. And today I'll share some of my key lessons why I think we need to evolve purpose to really create sustainable change for all. So just a little bit more about my journey. In fact, my journey started as a young advertising creator. I started as a copywriter. I don't know if there's any copywriter here online today, but not now just on the back of Glasgow. It almost seems like a historic thing to say, but my first book, Goodvertising, not the one you have on the slide, got actually provoked by the fact that we were hosting a climate summit in Copenhagen. Back then it was called COP15. I had very high expectations for our elected government leaders to stand up to the change. But as we all know, this sort of happened. Not a lot happened. So what I thought was, what if some of the world's biggest brands, what if all of you could use your work and voice for good? And that led me to write my first book, Goodvertising. And as you can see, it's a much younger Thomas, less gray hairs on that picture. And the premise was incredibly simple at that point. It was, in fact, just saying that, you know, what you do, if you do good for people and planet, it will be good for brand and bottom line. And back then, it was the early days of purpose. You had sustainable living plan. Unilever just launched a sustainable living plan. You had Dove for real beauty. You had Chipotle doing back to the start. You had Patagonia. You had lots of brands sort of beginning to enter this space. But recently, I felt the urge to revise my look at purpose and how we're doing purpose. Because most of the time, what I witnessed, and sorry about the language, most purpose communication felt a little bit like pissing in a wetsuit. In the beginning, it feels warm and fuzzy, but it quickly begins to stink. So that's exactly what we want to avoid here today. Because if we look at the purpose space today, it looks more like this. All these brands incredibly busy about talking about all the great stuff they're doing. Oh, look at us, we're doing something for the climate. Look at us, we're doing something for the LGBTQ community. You know, look at us, we're cleaning the oceans. And in fact, that doesn't actually look that good, does it? When brands stand up there on the hero's pedestal and they're claiming to solve all the ills of this world. How genuine is that really? And one of the key questions that provoked me to write my second book, The Hero Trap, was in fact this one question. And try and ask yourself this question, maybe share it in the chat. What leader, brand, organization have in fact created positive change in your life? Because my list of brands was actually really, really short. So I think we need to change the way we look at leadership. Because unfortunately, it does seem like brands have been talking about how great their products are, and suddenly they're just talking about how great they are for the world. And is that really believable? If you take most brands' purpose statements out there at the moment currently, let's take Patagonia. They say we're in the business to save our home planet. If you said most of today's brands down in front of psychologists, they would probably say that either that brand is megalomaniac or maybe even delusional. It almost sounds like too good to be true. And obviously, yes, Patagonia have a long history of doing good, but copying the approach that Patagonia is taking is probably not the right thing. Because what is good today might not be good tomorrow. So at some point, you most likely will be criticized when you put on that hero cape and say, we're going to save the world. Take another example, Ben and Jerry's. Obviously, yes, back in the days, good old Ben and Jerry. When they say, yes, we are doing the best possible ice cream in the nicest possible way, is that really the best possible ice cream today, honestly? I mean, if we look at just where I live in Copenhagen, there's so many other ice cream makers that's vegan, it's almost hand-forged somewhere, and even nice as possible. Today, it might even more look like a bland, industrialized product. So maybe it's not strange that people aren't really buying our purposeful messages that much anymore. Because what I've witnessed over the last 10 years is that more and more brands are talking about all the great stuff they're doing, but fewer and fewer people are believing what we're telling them. So that's why I sort of had to revise my view on purpose. And secondly, also what we want to understand here today is obviously the business case behind purpose, right? And if you look at statistics, we hear this again and again, 65% of people say they want to buy from purposeful brands, but only 26% follow through. So there's a gap that we need to figure out, 39%. Maybe again, it's not so strange because we humans say we want to do a lot of things. We're always trying to achieve a better us, but we often fail. Right now, New Year's is coming up, right? So this is a good opportunity for you to think about your New Year's pledges. And most often those New Year's pledges, those changes in our life often end up just being a new beginning to bad old habits. So probably a couple of weeks into January, the running shoes are still lying there in the corridor. So one of the things I wanted to change in my life, and a brand that actually helped me do that and answered that question I asked you in the beginning, is a brand called Seasons Årstider. And I interviewed their CEO for my new book, The Hero Trap. And he talked about Earth Connection. Basically what Årstider does, they deliver this box with farm fresh produce to my doorstep, but also comes with recipes on how to cook more plant-based. And I really wanted to cook more plant-based because probably you're not that familiar with Danish cooking, but most of the time it's overboiled potatoes, it's gravy, and it's pork meat that's kind of cooked as hard as the sole of a shoe. So obviously I wanted to learn to cook more plant-based, and the brand helped me do so. And obviously when I'm successful, you'll see me be sharing that on Instagram and social channels. Most of the time, obviously, change is difficult, and probably it looks a little bit more like this, to be honest. So the evolution that I'm witnessing right now, and I'll challenge you on this, I don't think it's enough to do more, because that's going to be a marathon on actions, and you're not going to win that, because if your action is so great, you don't need marketing. And your why and your values won't cut it in the marketplace anymore, because when everybody is claiming to have higher values, people won't believe you. So what I will say is that we're really moving into a sort of post-purpose market, because your why is not enough, but it's much more about who you can help people become. So the societal difference, where was my first book, Goodvertising, stop, for example, talking more about a more environmentally friendly car. Today, I think the real genuine difference is when brands can help me live healthier, be challenging biases, being more conscious. So it's much more about who you can help people become. Because those leaders who help you achieve amazing things, that help you realize some of those New Year's pledges, that's genuine. That's something you can feel. You can feel the change, like I could with Årstider, who taught me to cook more plant-based. So it's a fundamentally different view on leadership, in fact. It's not about a navel gazing, this is what we believe in as a brand, but it's much more about all of us being part of the change. So I'm going to share one tool with you here today, and I won't have time to go in depth with it, but it's called Arrow, and it's inspired by psychotherapy and coaching, because both those disciplines are goal-oriented. So it pushes you towards action and transformation. Obviously, it asks you, what is it that you do? That might be the product or the service, maybe the running shoes. How are you unique in delivering that product or the service? Maybe it's because you're a Turkish company with the values that comes with. But the key question is, in fact, who can you help people become? So it's much more about the challenges, the aspirations that I have rather than your brand have. And lastly, when can you enable that change? The outcome of this, I don't call a purpose, because I think purpose is sometimes and most often too good a word to be true. I mean, think about it. How many of us wake up in the morning and want to save the world? Most of us just go to the toilet, and if it's a good day, hopefully you push the small flush button rather than the big flush button. So the outcome of this is transformative promise. A transformative promise, because it's a promise about a change you can enable people's lives. And let me give you one quick example of a brand, Discovery. So their transformative promise is to incentivize people to live healthier. So you can sort of hear the difference, right? And by doing so, they've been incredibly successful in motivating people to live healthier lives. And they have a program called Vitality. So for example, if you eat healthier, if you go to the gym, you get rewarded. But by doing so, they've been successful enabling people to exercise 5.2 days more per month. Quite an achievement. So bridging that 39% gap and delivering a good business case, because healthier customers means paying out less in premiums. I wanted to explore this even further. So I compared classic purposeful commercials with 4 transformative commercials. One of the purposeful ones was Budweiser, talking about a lingo that we often see in purpose communication. There's spots for better tomorrow. Let's compare that with a transformative commercial, Always Like a Girl, that obviously wants to give girls the confidence about and changing the sentence like girl to one where you're not as strong as the boys to one of confidence. And when we look at the results of that, yes, on brand warmth and on competence, both transformative approach, purposeful approach do more or less the same. But when you look at how motivated people feel, people are on average 29.6% more motivated by the transformative approach. And what's even more interesting, they are on average 29.4% more willing to pay a premium price. So certainly I feel that most brands didn't fall out of love with people, not because they weren't living up to societal pressures and solving big issues in society, but because they forgot to play a meaningful role in people's lives. So for me, for example, Årstiderne, I'm not as price sensitive because I think they help me achieve amazing things. So really want to encourage you, when you build brands, meaningful brands, don't stand up on the hero's pedestal and put the hero's cape on or halo and say, I'm going to save the world, but rather think about who you can help people become. Because in fact, the greatest leaders in my life have been those who have helped me achieve amazing things. And there's an urgency to this message as well, right? Because we need to create change, because we know our planetary systems and our earth systems are really not in a good stage. So we need actions right now. And for anyone who's been involved in change, for those of you who tried to smoke, people can tell you, or your doctors and your loved ones can tell you to quit the cigarettes. But by the end of the day, the only one who can create that change is in fact you. So stop pitching yourself as the hero, but really turn each and every one of us into the heroes by asking this one simple question: who can you help people become? Because if you want to change the world, only you can do it. So I hope you really want to follow my journey around creating transformative brands and really creating brands that enable people to create change, because young people aren't buying our purpose nonsense anymore. If you want, you can read more about my book and you can download a free version. And I hope you want to follow me on social media, and together, as Esi said, we can all understand what it takes to create true brands with purpose that motivate us to be part of the change. So thank you so much for presenting here today.